Hi everybody, it's Sally here. Today I'm going to do a little demonstration on single motif knitting on the silver reed type of machine, the punch card version that is. So that is to say it's the type of machine that has got the drum patterning mechanism where you've got two drums that read the pattern at the back of your carriage and it goes through a card reader like this. I'm going to follow the instructions as given in my book. On this one for the SK280, it is on page 23, and I'm going to use the pattern that they use in there, which is this rather odd looking teddy bear, but he serves the purpose as good as any other kind of single motif, so that's what we'll use. Most of the Knitmaster silver reed machines that have the drum patterning mechanism can do single motif, all except the very early versions. I think maybe a 321, 322 models might not be able to, but if your machine came supplied with these things, which are the magic cams that do single motif, then it certainly is capable of doing it. So in addition to your normal carriage, you need these to have two of these. There's a left and a right. They are called the magic cams and they handle the pattern knitting. You will also need these things, these little orange and white plastic widgets. Again, there's a left and a right, and they are called the point cams, and they are used to isolate the area of the needle bed where you want your motif to appear. And then you will also need to use these things, which are the yarn separators. They look like little plastic spoon-shaped things, and they go on the side of the needle bed and are used to keep the threads separate. And of course you'll need your punch card. So to prepare for knitting the motif, I have done some knitting in 4-ply on my machine. You can probably in about the right place. I've done about 20 rows or so, and I've parked my carriage on the left hand side because, like all forms of pattern knitting on the silver reed machines, you need to read your pattern in before you can commence knitting. So let's feed him in. And although I'm not going to knit a continuous pattern, I will join it into the loop just to keep it out of the way of the yarn at the back. There we go, and then I'm going to lock him on row 1. Now this pattern has got some little flowery things underneath the teddy bear, so I'm going to ignore that bit and rotate the card around until I can come to the bottom of the actual bear, because that you might well knit continuously across the whole width of your knitting. And so there he is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. And I can tell that I've picked up the first row of the card because those 3 teeth have gone back. If you look back up here, you'll see that the first row of the pattern that shows up underneath there has just got 3 holes on this row, which is row 6. On the side, so I need to go down 5 more from that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then those 3 teeth are the 3 that are picked up on the first row of the pattern. Okay, so I can knit 1 row across, which will read my pattern in, like that. If you haven't got the opportunity to actually knit to that extra row and you need to read the pattern in doing a free pass of the carriage, you can do that. You just remove the yarn from the feeder. So move this back a little bit, and then you use your carriage release button on the top of the carriage here to pop the front up and then go across twice. Get back to the start point. So either which way, I have now read my pattern into the drums on the back of the machine and it's ready to start the pattern knitting. Right, so I need to add these cams now to the back of my carriage. I might actually end up having to knit another row so you can see the side of it. So if I move it across here, on the side of this thing, it's got some little arrow marks and there in front of the screw, and those are the ones that you line up with the triangles on the side of your carriage. And you should have those two little metal flanges that sit out the side, and that just screws on the top. Right, so I've screwed those back on. That extra 2 passes just so you can see what I was doing. And then the yarn separators, these things here, they go 3 needles out, and you just pop them down through the sinker posts and push them under the needles. If you can see that. I'll come back in a bit closer again. So they go, you put the shaft bit down through the sinker post and just push them under the needles, and then you must then make sure that your main yarn colour is sitting on the top, and you do the same on the other side. And there should be 3 needles between the edge of the yarn separator and the edge of your knitting here. And then lastly, you need to position the point cams. Now your motif, if you've noticed on your needle strip, you should have these coloured bars, the red bar, then a white space, and then another red bar. That is where the groups of 24 stitch repeats fall as they go across, as the knitting goes across. So if I wanted my motif, if I had a bigger piece of knitting, I could put it there. So it'll be on those 24 stitches, or there, or over here, wherever a block falls. But if you put them halfway between one and the other one, you'll get half a teddy bear and then the other half of the teddy bear. So make sure that you put them in the right place. Obviously, this is only a little piece, so I'm going to put it on the centre. And these cams, this is the right-hand one, where it changes from white to orange. That needs to sit at the edge of the orange bar or the red bar, and it goes behind the needle butts, between the needle butts and the rail at the back. You can see that. And then the same over on this side. Needs to go there. So that line is coming down and ending at the end of the strip. It looks a bit distorted on the camera, but I can assure you it does come down there and ends there. So those isolation cams or point cams will now limit the pattern knitting to those 24 needles. And then last but by no means least, in order to tie the threads at the edge of the motif, the floats at the back, you need to have 2 strands of your main colour. But these are about a foot long, about 18 inches long, 45 centimetres for those of you that go metric. And then you just make a little slip knot at the end. And hook that on the needle immediately to the right of your group of 24. Just hook it in the hook, put it back, and then you can tighten it up. Not too tight, needs to be able to knit through about the size of the stitch. And then the same on the left hand side. So the needle immediately to the left of the group of 24, hook it into the hook and then tighten it up. So about the size of the stitch. So make sure you don't pull the stitch in front of the latch, or behind the latch rather, and leave those dangling there, ready to do the wrap as you go across. So we are ready to start the motif. I'm going to reset my row counter to 0. Set the carriage to knit Fair Isle by sliding the cam 2 stops out to the right. You can see that. it's set to there to there, so it's set to Fair Isle up here. And release the card. Put my side levers back from circle. They go back, the side levers, that one and that one go back from circle to triangle, so that that will instruct the pattern, the carriage to pattern, and then I'm ready to go. Put the second colour in yarn feeder B. So that's just going in my carriage here. And I'll just hold on to the bottom of it while I knit the first row across. Just double check I've done everything, release the card, side levers on triangle, cam is set, yarn is in, row counter stop, and knit across. And as you can see, it has knitted those 3 stitches that were shown on the bottom of the card. If I lock the card again, you'll see in this row is going to knit those and those in the contrast colour. Now, the yarn wrapping, you do this on the carriage side, and all I'm going to do is just push that needle, which is the one to the left, slightly forward so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to wrap that strand of yarn around it. You can see that more closely. So this yarn that I put on the stitch below, I'm going to wrap into that needle. That's all I have to do. Over here, the yarn separators, the contrast yarn should come under the yarn separator, not over the top. Sometimes I find it does go over the top, but you need to make sure that you put it underneath. So the main colour is on top, the contrast colour is underneath, and make sure they're sitting correctly. And with the motif knitting, I found that I needed to take the carriage further past the edge of the knitting than I would normally do. I normally would maybe take it to about there, but it seems to need an extra couple of inches, presumably to clear these things off. Otherwise, you end up getting those loops that get caught on the side of the carriage. Right, let's put you back down again and knit back, fingers crossed. There we go. Now this time it's caught it correctly. It went under the separator. And now on this side, I need to, oh, my little thing has come off its needle. Never mind, I will just hook it back on again, this one. Popped off the needle. I'll just hook that back on, and it should be underneath that yarn. It's come forward in front of the latch. Let's put that back. Put the stitch back into the hook. And then I'm going to wrap it to get the right end of it. Wrap. And the idea behind that is it's going to trap the contrast yarn in a straight line up the side of the motif on each side as we go. Put the contrast yarn back under the yarn separator and knit back. It caught it properly this time. It went underneath on that side. And again, I'm going to wrap that one on that side, knit back. Wrap that needle on that side. So each time I'm making sure that the contrast yarn is going under the separator, and then I'm pulling out the needle immediately to the left of the motif and wrapping it. And as you can start to see, the yarn, the contrast yarn is getting caught neatly in a straight line down either side of the motif, which is really what you want it to be doing. Move your weights up regularly, as you would normally do. So I'm going to move my side weights up, claw weights, and also keep the edge of the motif nicely weighted. So I want to trap my wrapping yarn. Put the weights on there, and need to wrap that one. Carry on. And so I'll just continue doing this until this this motif is finished. I might as well finish the whole teddy now that I'm nearly this far up him. Just keep an eye on these yarn separators, making sure that you're through, making sure that your contrast yarn is underneath. As I say, you might need to just move your carriage slightly further to the side than you would normally when you're knitting to and fro. And just make sure you don't keep doing what I'm doing, which is keep knitting this contrast yarn through. Yeah, just wrapping yarn through rather. Just needs to be caught in the needle. Now that has caught a thread here, which I didn't want it to do, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat, and I'm just going to cut it. That's probably because I didn't have it far enough past the carriage, so I'm going to just cut that contrast yarn. Pull it out, oops, and I'm going to tie that up later. But what I've got here is I've got to knit these stitches back using the correct colour, which was the white. So I've got 2 stitches there that need knitting back. There's one, and there's a second one. So that's that easily fixed. And just going to tie, I will tie that round there later, because you'll be able to either hide it behind your lining if you're going to line your floats, or you'll be able to sew it in. There you go. If I tie it up there now, it'll stick up in the air, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that there for a minute. Right, okay, so wrapping. So don't have a panic attack if that kind of thing happens. It's nearly always fixable. Move my weights up again. Only got a few more rows of teddy to do. If you stop to do your weights, don't forget to do your wrap. Knitting it through. If you can't see the end of your card, you can just lock it. I've still got teeth going in, so I know that I've got more pattern rows to come. So probably just a couple more. But once I can lock the card and not see any teeth engaged, I know that I've reached the end of my pattern. So there we go. End of teddy. So I'm going to cut my contrast yarn. Pull that down, but I'm going to wrap it again. I can take my yarn separators out. Take my cams off. You need to pull the side levers forwards to dot to take the magic cams off. Just unscrew, whoops, remove or unscrew and drop on the floor, whichever is your preference, and take the cams, the point cams away. So I can now go back to stockinette. So I set my carriage back down to the stockinette setting, and I can carry on knitting. Somebody asked me about tension. If I was just going to put one motif on something, I would take my tension from just doing a stockinette swatch. I mean, one little area of a single motif isn't going to make that much difference to a garment overall. So that's what I would do. I didn't increase the tension when I knitted the motif to do this one. Let's see how it goes. Again, because you've only got one piece of knitting. But if you try a little sample and find it puckers, you might need to turn your tension, your stitch dial number up a little bit. Let's knit a few rows and have a look at him. It's probably enough. Remove the bits. Let's have a little look at wee Teddy. There he goes. Now I have got a couple of stitches of show through here, so that's not been desperately successful. Let's pick that up. But, you know, if all else fails, you can always Swiss darn over the top of it. There he is, one little teddy bear. So that's how you knit a single motif. Again, if you really wanted to take that out, you could possibly cut it and sew it down afterwards. This was the one that I cut when I got caught up. So I would just take that and tie it off. And again, sew him in later. As regards dealing with the floats, there, I think we're going to be doing another tutorial about dealing with floats, because obviously this has got a lot of very long floats there. I mean, when you pin that out and steam or press it, it will help to set those floats in place. But there are various sorts of treatments that you can do for floats. For a single motif, I would probably be most inclined to knit a very fine mesh lining and sew it over the back. Latching up floats can be successful, providing you have got a stitch to latch them into, which I could have done there. If I latched up the blue, could have anchored it there, and likewise the white could have gone and anchored up in here. There are various things that you can do. You can stitch down through the front afterwards and capture them in place. Several methods, but this is the most successful way of keeping the back of it tidy, is to use that separate thread, which you can see anchored in there, and then wrap up the sides. Right, hope that's been helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know.